You know, you're half more, I
Yeah.
think you're more than half me.
Yeah.
You must be 100% you, but also there must be something of me in you, and
Yeah.
this must be something that we can fix,
Yeah.
like now. You know, so we worked on it with her teachers, and their approach was that give it time. There's different ways of doing this. Not everybody is verbal. Let her show through visual, let her throw through art, let her express herself any which way. And I said, absolutely. What surprised her teachers and me a couple of months later was that she was offered by her music teacher the lead role in the school play.
Wow, that's incredible.
And I said, how is this possible? I mean, the teachers were like, we were surprised when Mr. Linford said, Inaya should play Gloria in Madagascar. And I was like, but she doesn't really speak very loudly, you know? And they said, no, she does. She sings at the top of her lungs. So, and when we saw her on stage, she was up front and center. She was a transformed person. So she'd found a medium through which to, she was comfortable and she was expressing herself. She says she feels comfortable when there's some distance. And very briefly, I know I'm taking up some time, the other thing that I noticed was that in fiction and non-fiction, which they're teaching in school now, in non-fiction, writing nothing. In fiction, pages of stuff. She wasn't comfortable sharing what Inaya likes. But if Inaya is a unicorn, then the unicorn is doing a bunch of things. She feels protected by that layer of fiction. So it's fascinating to get into that little brain, to understand what is making her behave this way. There's nothing wrong with her at all. It's just she's approaching how complex it must be to spend 8 hours in this. Thank God I don't have to go to school anymore. And those people in school and those girls and boys are sometimes really hard also to deal with.
Oh, they are.
You know?
They are.
And then they come home and of course they have tantrums because they can be themselves.
Yeah.
And you know, they're not judged and they're loved.
And
so
it's a safe space for them to come
So I
back.
think all of this, you know, that person noticing, creating that nurturing environment, finding out what you're good at, it requires a lot of really a personal approach, which comes through the volunteers and the mothers and working with people. It also comes through this wonderful use of AI and is it MindSpark, you know, something like that, which is engaging and fun, rewarding, makes it, you know, like a gaming approach to things. It's really when you have people like PNG and Shiksha thinking, for now they've been doing this for 20 years, on how not just bringing children to school, but making sure that you're really creating equity, such that everybody who's going to school is getting something out of it. And we're creating a platform where everyone at least is able to stand on the same level.
I agree. I think it's also clear that from what everyone is saying, that we can't push a narrative onto our children of what we want them to do. We have to bring out their latent sort of talents. And I think one of the key factors, like we discussed earlier, was timely interventions. And all of this can only be can only be possible if more and more people are aware of learning gaps, what they really stand for, how to overcome it, and how there's really no stigma to it, right? It's really about creating a conducive environment for children and to listen, understand, be empathetic. And so one of the most important aspects of this film and the work PNG Shiksha do is the communication and messaging. So I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you for your help to sort of galvanize and add to this messaging by standing up and flipping the labels, the negative labels that are on the board behind us, please. Yes, please. I will stand with you and flip. wanted to, sort of take a brief moment to share why this initiative by PNG Shiksha is one that I am so personally connected to. When I came on board, when the team approached me a few years ago, it was coincidentally around the same time we realized my son, who was pretty much born during COVID, had a slight developmental delay. And I remember family and friends telling me, oh, it's a phase, he's just naughty, he's active. But I knew something in my gut felt off kilter. I was privileged enough to have, resources and access to experts and a great support system who helped me tremendously in his learning journey. And I think it was that early intervention, that ability to be proactive, that's really helped him now identify his weak spots, get him the support and the training he needed so that he can be engaged and fully present in school as he is today. And I'll be honest, before this campaign, like Abhishek said too, I didn't really know about learning gaps. Despite having, despite being someone who reads a lot, I have an older daughter, it's not something that I had really understood and approached. And I didn't realize really how prevalent this issue is. Abhishek, we've had over the years some interesting conversations on learning gaps and its correlations. Can you tell us a little more about the work PNG Shiksha is doing on ground to erase the learning gap?
Now, so over the past 20 years, we have been impacting the lives of 50 lakh children. And I want to express gratitude to the amazing work our NGO partners are doing on ground to be able to deliver this. I think
that deserves a round of applause.
It definitely does, right? And we work on this at two levels, right? One is prevention and second is remediation. On prevention, we first, like we were talking earlier, we're trying to figure out what are the causes of learning gaps so that we can prevent them from happening in the first place. Part of it could be because lack of conducive environment, like we were talking earlier. Here I can bring an example of Amar Jyoti. It's this great kid who used to study in one of the schools that we support in Assam. Now this school, before we started supporting it, used to get flooded, right, because of the monsoons there. And even the access to the school would get hampered, and the school would remain closed for many days, sometimes months. That's when we started supporting the school, and we provided the right access, we ensured the right infrastructure for the school to keep running. Today, Amar Jyoti is a 24-year-old doctor working at a government hospital. And there are so many stories like this, right? It always gives me goosebumps when I talk about those stories. So one part is on prevention. Then we also work on early childhood education. We talked about how not everybody has access to nursery and pre-primary, which is where we work with our NGO partners via volunteers to provide the skills to them. And then as we look at remediation, there are, again, work which happens which is tech-based and which is community-based.
But I think 2010, I remember doing one of the first campaign launches that they were doing. And then I remember going to Bengal more recently when they were still in early stages. I think in 2014, we were working with Roundtable India, I think PNG Shiksha was, and building schools. At that point, the focus was still on getting children to schools and filling that gap where actual infrastructure didn't exist and children had to walk for miles and miles to actually go to a school. So building more schools, creating more toilets actually, because a lot of girl children don't go to school because of the absence of just the bathroom facilities. So that was a glaring gap, which I think now it's so exciting to see that that has been filled and that, there's 95%, if I'm not wrong, of attendance, and that is happening today. And now you can actually work towards more invisible things, like bridging the learning gap. So I remember in Bengal painting a wall and actually getting to be a teacher for a day as well. For a day was fine. I did not enjoy being a teacher during lockdown because teaching your own child is a whole different skill set.
A whole different.
And I was not good at that. So a huge, a shout out for all the people who teach children out there. It requires a lot of patience. But I'm so excited to be invited here to celebrate 20 years of Shiksha. I think that it's fabulous to go from, I remember in 2014, it was still about 1.5 lakh children that you had impacted, and now to come to 50 lakhs is staggering. I know there's a long way to go, but it's always wonderful, I think, when companies, especially where the primary goal is not to do, sort of philanthropy, but there's so much focus still on trying to create a better world. And I know that education has been so important, especially for PNG. From the beginning, they've focused on one thing in education, understanding, and I see that in my life. I know that I come from privilege. But when I talk about my privilege or I feel my privilege, it's not social or economic. It's the educational privilege that I can see the impact of in my life. The fact that even within my family, I'm really the only college graduate. I may not be the most successful person by far in my family, but I know that the confidence that it has given me, the ability to navigate and pivot no matter what happens, and conduct myself in all kinds of settings, comes from that education. So that is something that we want for all our children. And it's wonderful that PNG Shiksha has been doing that for so long.
I love that. I think, and it just goes to show that you were here when they started with 1.5 and now how far they moved. And we're all here cheering all your partners and all of you on for many more numbers. Kalki, can I get your experience with working on this?
Well, actually, Soha said everything I wanted to say.
Sorry.
But it's similarly, in 2015, I had gone to Delhi. I remember putting down one of the bricks for the schools that were being built at that time. And I think it's really fantastic that they have evolved from that, because infrastructure is the absolute basic, right, in order for kids to even go to school. But they have managed to go beyond that and now access what actually is a problem not only for underprivileged kids, but for all education systems around the world. Education systems are reworking themselves in a big way. I think COVID showed us that, that suddenly we're like, oh, what are we teaching our kids? And we're suddenly very involved in what's happening. Yeah. And we're like, wait, but what about all these other things they need to learn, right? And I think that, there are schools now which, focus on vocation, that focus on what you are meant to do much more. Rather than say, these are the successful jobs that you can do and these are the non-successful jobs, So I think that's that's very forward thinking of Shiksha, PNG and Shiksha, because to really tackle that invisible line, that a child needs mental support, that needs emotional support just as much as, the physical skill that you get taught.
I think it's very special to have both of you here, because not only with your insights, but the fact that you've been such a key part of this journey for this milestone celebration. So thank you from the entire team for being a part of this discussion. And Dr. Varka, final comments from you on the work that PNG and PNG Shiksha are doing.
As I told Abhishek, I think PNG Shiksha should be across India.
down.
I can stand on something if you want.
No.
Good to see you, सोहा जी and कल्की जी. PNG शिक्षा 20 year completed and आप सभी उसका पार्ट हैं. So ये beautiful initiative है. इसके बारे में आप लोग यहाँ पर event को देखा, attend किया. So would you like to say something कि कैसा रहा experience and 20 year complete किया है PNG शिक्षा ने. So ladies first.
Ladies first. मैं तो बहुत एक्साइटेड हूँ क्योंकि अभी आई थिंक पहले 15 साल हो चुके हैं जब मैं पहली बार पीएनजी के साथ जुड़ी थी, विच इज़ ऑल्सो शिक्षा कैंपेन लॉन्च, और उनका फोकस शिक्षा के साथ ही रहा है क्योंकि वो मानते हैं कि एजुकेशन के ज़रिए हम एक इक्वालिटी अचीव कर सकते हैं, बच्चों को एक कॉन्फिडेंस मिलता है, और वो मैंने अपनी निजी की ज़िंदगी में देखा है. अभी 20 साल हो चुके हैं और 1.5 लाख से लेके अभी 25 लाख नहीं 50 लाख बच्चे अफेक्ट हो रहे, इम्पैक्ट हो चुके हैं through PNG शिक्षा, which I think is fantastic. और अभी from building schools and building toilets, they've moved to एक जो चीज़ जो ज़्यादा दिखती नहीं है, which is the learning gap. और हमें आज बताया गया कि 28% of adults are not even aware कि एक learning gap है क्या. आज मुझे पता चला, जब मैं छोटी थी मुझे कुछ आंकड़ों समझ नहीं आती थी, जैसे 5 को कैसे लिखते हैं, और फिर किसी ने मुझे समझाया कि अगर आपको 5 लिखना है तो you take a man with a large stomach and a long nose. और उसके बाद मुझे वो आ गया. तो आप इसको एक लर्निंग गैप भी बुला सकते हैं जहाँ पे किसी ने मुझे समझाया नहीं. एंड आई थिंक दैट वंस यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट, अगर आप अपने बच्चों की लाइफ में कुछ इंटरेस्ट ले, या तो एज अ पेरेंट, या तो एज अ वॉलंटियर, या तो एज अ टीचर, प्रोफेसर, समवन फ्रॉम द कम्युनिटी, if you take an interest in children's lives, you understand what is missing, what is the reason why they're falling back perhaps, and then through those resources, also through this wonderful resource which is called Mind Spark. I keep looking to you for called Mind Spark, which is like a game on the phone which they can play, जहाँ पे उनका जो level है वो assess होता है. This is also something that PNG शिक्षा has come up with, which is actually making learning fun for children. तो बहुत सारे अलग तरीके हैं, and they've been doing this for 20 years, and it's just nice to celebrate their success and be a part of this initiative today.
Yes, I've also been involved with Shiksha since 2015. 10 साल हो गए, और just over 10 years. और तब तो infrastructure की काम कर रहे थे, and they did an amazing job of building schools all over. And मैं दिल्ली में एक brick लगाई थी तब, and अभी इवॉल्व हो गया उनके प्रोग्राम, और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर से ये लर्निंग गैप के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, और दे एड्रेसिंग दिस लर्निंग गैप बाय having NGOs and skilled individuals being part of the school program and assessing children's learning abilities. और क्या ये लर्निंग गैप क्या है कि अगर एक स्टैंडर्ड 5 का क्लास की बच्चा आई थिंक स्टैंडर्ड 2 जैसा लिख सकता है या पढ़ सकता है, तो वो लर्निंग गैप होता है, और अबाउट 50% ऑफ द चिल्ड्रन आर इन दिस लर्निंग गैप. सो इट्स अ ह्यूज अमाउंट, और बहुत काम ज़रूरत है, एंड दैट्स व्हाट PNG शिक्षा इज़ ट्राइंग टू वर्क ऑन. एंड earlier prevention is just better. The earlier that you address this with children, the less the learning gap. अगर बच्चा बहुत छोटा है तो जल्दी पकड़ जाएगा, जल्दी सीख जाएगा. तो that's why the attention is trying to be for the younger kids so that they can then catch up with their classes quicker.
Okay, great, super. And सोहा, जैसा कि यहाँ पर बात भी हुई, कच्चा नींबू है पक्का नींबू, हम देखते हैं कि हमारी सोसाइटी में कोई भी बच्चा अगर मैथ में, इंग्लिश में बहुत ही वीक है
जी,
बट दूसरी एक्टिविटीज़ में बहुत ही स्ट्रांग है, लाइक स्पोर्ट्स में बहुत ही अच्छा खेलता है, फिर भी स्कूल में, सोसाइटी में लोग उसे कच्चा नींबू बोलते हैं, पढ़ने में बहुत ही कमजोर है. ये जो प्रॉब्लम अभी भी हमारी सोसाइटी में है, कल्की जी, तो इसके ऊपर क्या कुछ आप लोग ये
मैं तो मानती हूँ कि हमें लेबल करने का बहुत शौक है. ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ
ठीक है,
सब ठीक है. ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ अगर आप मैथ्स या नंबर्स में वीक है तो आपको ये लेबल मिलता है या लोग आपको नाम बुलाते हैं. स्पोर्ट्स में भी बहुत बड़ा, जैसे होल टेक बीइंग कॉल्ड अ गीक, कि आप मैथ्स में और एकेडेमिया में अच्छा काम करते हैं लेकिन आपको स्पोर्ट्स खेलना नहीं आता है तो देन यू बिकम अ गीक. सो आई थिंक ऑल दीज लेबल्स जो हम एक्चुअली स्टेज पे बात कर रहे थे और हमने लेबल्स को घुमा के आपको एक पॉजिटिव वर्ड दिखाया है स्टेज पे, दीज लेबल्स आर वेरी हार्मफुल बिकॉज दे सेल्फ फुलफिलिंग प्रोफेसीज. बच्चा फिर समझता है कि यही मेरा पोटेंशियल है और आई विल नॉट बी एबल टू ब्रेक थ्रू दिस, और मैं और कुछ नहीं कर पाऊंगी या कर पाऊंगा. सो आई थिंक दैट व्हाट दे डूइंग अगेन थ्रू PNG शिक्षा इज taking away that label, whether it's kacha nimbu, whether it's different regional variations of that word, and talking about things like growing, learning, progressing, which are very important.
Superb, great. And what's the pipeline in 2025? क्या कुछ upcoming?
आज ही मेरी पिक्चर रिलीज हुई है. हाँ, थैंक्स. ऑन प्राइम वीडियो, छोरी 2. तो अगर आपने नहीं देखी तो आप प्लीज, इट्स अ हॉरर फिल्म.
अरे मैं भी एक हॉरर फिल्म कर रही हूँ एक्चुअली, हॉरर सीरीज.
That's great.
इस साल आ रही है फॉर Amazon मिनी एंड इट्स कॉल्ड भय.
Nice.
आने वाले हैं.
So horror's back, guys.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike,
Yeah, horror's in.
Yeah.